last 6 years, the Australian government has maintained scientific stations at Macquarie Island and at Heard Island. In February 1954, a third station was established at Mawson, McRobertson Land in Australian Antarctic territory. Although maintained primarily for meteorological purposes, these outposts provide opportunities for scientific studies covering a wide variety of other subjects: geophysics, radiophysics, biology, geology, glaciology, cosmic rays, and aurora. This film describes the 1954 Australian National Antarctic Research Expedition, which relieved the two island establishments and set up the new station at Mawson. It is December the 12th, 1953, and the Danish motor vessel Kister Dan, under Captain H.C. Peterson, is sailing from Melbourne for Macquarie Island, under charter to the Australian government. 14 men, led by Ken Campbell, will be put ashore at the island with 150 tons of stores. A 5-day voyage over the restless, heaving Southern Ocean brings the ship to her destination, and the Kister Dan anchors close offshore. The ANARE station is situated at the northern end of the island. There are no sheltered harbors, no piers or jetties at Macquarie Island. Stores are landed the hard way on rocky beaches through heavy surf. In water which is bitterly cold at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, giant kelp grasps at the ankles of men struggling with lines from the pontoon, while penguins clustered on the beach look on with impassive regard. Rubber pontoons make an operation like this possible. They hump themselves, caterpillar fashion, over the waves and bounce undamaged over rocks and shingle. The Kister Dan now returns to Melbourne and takes aboard men and 450 tons of stores, then again heads through the roaring 40s on the long 3,000-mile journey to Heard Island. There are now 24 expedition men on board the Kister Dan. They are the leader, Philip Law, and his lieutenant, been at Mawson for a year, 9 men led by Gray, and an RAAF flight of 4 men commanded by Flight Lieutenant Douglas Leckie. Big Ben, an ice-covered volcano 9,000 feet high, dominates Heard Island. The landing beach here is better than at Macquarie Island, but the water is colder. It is only 4 degrees above freezing point. Men work from dawn till dark to unload the ship before the short spell of fine weather gives way to gales and snowstorms. For 4 years, the ANARE has been breeding huskies at Heard Island in preparation for use in Antarctica. 27 trained dogs are now loaded into cages and taken aboard the Kister Dan. Leaving the Heard Island station and tarring Big Ben, the Kister Dan sails for Kerguelen Island, 260 miles to the northwest. This island is a French possession. The scenery is magnificent, with deep fjords, high mountains, and grassy slopes. Here, the expedition takes on fuel, fresh water, and sundry stores from the scientific station that the French government has established, and the French observer, Georges Schwartz, joins the Mawson party here. From Kerguelen, the Kista Dan heads directly for the main objective of the expedition, the Antarctic continent. Everyone is becoming weary of the stormy seas and the constant motion of the ship, and is looking forward to reaching the calm water amongst the pack ice which fringes the Antarctic continent. There is a short break in the monotony when the expedition doctor, Bob Summers, performs an operation on a sick husky. Close to the Antarctic Circle, the ship first meets pack ice and begins to pull. Icebergs are numerous. This is a typical Antarctic tabular berg. It rises nearly 100 feet above the water, and there are another 600 feet below. Kista Dan's bows are specially strengthened to withstand impact with ice that would pierce the hull of an ordinary ship. However, paint is scraped from her hull by the edges of rock-hard ice floes. "30 miles from the Antarctic continent, one of the Oster aircraft takes off from an area of open water among the ice. Below, the Kista Dan looks like a child's toy as she lies with her bows wedged hard into a large floe. Flight Lieutenant Douglas Leckie flies low in to reconnoiter a way through the ice and to look for a suitable site for the new station. To his disappointment, Law finds a belt of unbroken blue ice 20 miles wide, attached fast to the coast of the Antarctic continent. At one point on the mainland, there is an area of ice-free rock shaped like a horseshoe, whose arms enclose a fine harbor, even though the sea is frozen solid. Law chooses this site as the most suitable one for the new station. Kista Dan now begins the difficult task of breaking through the 20 miles of solid blue ice, or fast ice, which is from 30 to 45 inches thick. Backing and charging, gaining 15 or 20 yards at each charge, the ship forges ahead. These Adelie penguins have come a long way. Their rookery is near the coast, and they've had to walk 20 miles over the fast ice to reach open water for their food. It appears that this year the fast ice has remained in position far later than usual. The penguins, as a result, are starving. The channel, broken by the ship, provides an unexpected opportunity for them to obtain food. These birds live on small shrimps, which occur in myriads in the sea, and they stuff themselves with this food so as to carry back enough to their chickens at home. This movement is called porpoising. Each penguin takes a quick breath as he arches through the air. These penguins, propelled by a vigorous stroke of their flippers, pop out of the water like champagne corks. Crammed with food, the penguins start the long trudge home to their starving chickens. Immediately each adult arrives at the rookery, it is chased by ravenous youngsters. Eventually, the parent is persuaded to stop and feed the infant and disgorges semi-digested shrimps into the little one's beak. RAAF rigger Frank Morgan mounts both the Oster aircraft on skis, and Doug Leckie and Ray Seaver, the pilots, carry out numerous survey flights from the ice beside the ship. From the air, the view is magnificent. Great mountain ranges rise from the vast wastes of the Antarctic plateau to a height of 6,000 feet. The pale blue continental ice around them flows slowly, like a glacier, down to the coast. Bob Dobers, with 4 others, is to push on ahead of the ship to Mawson with weasels, sledges, and living caravans. The required cargo is therefore unloaded and preparations proceed while the Kister Dan continues to charge her way forward through the ice. Schwartz is probing the ice to see whether it's strong enough to bear the weight of a weasel. A weasel is a vehicle with caterpillar tracks, specially designed for travel over snow and ice. Narrow cracks are speedily bridged by heavy timbers. Weather threatens, Dover's party hauls up its caravans for the night onto an island near Mawson. Next day, violent winds cause great ice movements around the ship. Under terrific pressure, the ice crumples and piles up beside the Kister Dan. The once smooth, fast ice is cracked and broken into pressure ridges. The Kister Dan becomes immovably wedged. For 2 days, all hands work hard to dig out the ship. the ship is free again, time is taken to shoot and collect seals for dog food. The fast ice, weakened by the recent storm, is now more easily penetrated, and the Kistadan breaks through to anchor in Mawson Harbour. The tumbled surface marks the frozen wake where the ship has battered her way through the ice. On February the 13th, the ex-leader raises the Australian flag and officially unloading now begins. These are hut sections coming ashore. The fast ice is an asset now, for sledges can be loaded at the ship's side and towed to the shore by weasels. The Weasel hauls this heavy diesel-electric power unit across the ice without difficulty. On the rocks, the going is heavier, and the tractor's powerful winch must be used to drag the load up the slope. "400 drums of fuel are unloaded. Handling these drums is heavy work, and the men look forward to a cup of tea. But first, the cook must melt ice for water. Hut building starts as soon as all the materials are ashore. First the foundations and floor, then the walls. This hut is built of prefabricated panels surfaced with aluminium and containing 4 inches of insulation. Bill Harvey is the carpenter. After the room partitions are in place, the roof panels are laid. The forklift on the tractor proves its value here. Holes are drilled in the rock for stakes, used in tying down the huts to keep them from blowing away in the violent gales. Soon, 3 huts are completed and work proceeds on the 4th. Other men continue unloading general stores. Bill Storer has to postmark 23,000 letters for stamp collectors all over the world. Jim Brooks, geophysicist, carries out measurements to determine the strength and direction of the Earth's magnetism in this region. Evening and feeding time for the huskies. George Schwartz gets a warm welcome when he arrives with the seal meat. The station is now well established, and the Kista Dan is ready to depart. Before the ship leaves Mawson, the Oster makes a flight westward to survey the coast of the Antarctic continent. Below us is Mawson Station. The Antarctic continent is the coldest, most desolate region on Earth. The ice sheet which covers the land becomes broken and crevassed near the coast, forming in places an impenetrable maze of tumbled ice. Where the ice is forced out into the sea, pieces break off and float away as icebergs. Here, floating icebergs have been trapped in the frozen sea. Along the coasts of McRobertson and Kemplands, there is much exposed, ice-free rock to interest the geologist. During the next 12 months, the Mawson team expects to sledge over most of this region. Back at Mawson, as the Kista Dan departs, the men who will man the station for the next 12 months climb onto their weasel and wave goodbye as they drive back over the blue ice. From Mawson, the ship sails eastward to chart and explore the coast. First to Skull and Monolith, then north through rapidly freezing seas to the open ocean, then across to Pridd's Bay. Here, the Kista Dan turns south and again enters pack ice as she pushes on to Vestfold Hills on the coast of Princess Elizabeth Land. The ship now meets pancake ice formed by recent freezing of the sea. It's the beginning of March, and soon winter will close these waters to all ships. At Vestfold Hills, Law takes a party ashore in the motorboat. The weather is dull and grey. Some of the men are landed on an island to make magnetic observations. The rest push on towards the mainland, some miles distant. Law goes ashore over extremely thin, new ice. The others follow, Dick Thompson carrying the flag. A cairn is built and the Australian flag is raised. 6 days later, the Kista Dan lifts and swings in the open ocean on her return voyage, but much has happened in the intervening time. On her first night out from Vestfold Hills, she narrowly escaped disaster in a hurricane, which drove her helplessly before it through seas studded with icebergs and pack ice. The Oster aircraft was blown overboard. When the storm abated, the ship was nearly trapped for the winter in heavy ice. Although now free of the ice, her troubles are by no means over. Through seas like these, she must battle her way back. First to Heard Island, on to Kerguelen, and then the long slog back to Australia. March the 31st, 1954, the Kister Dan sails proudly up the Yarra River to berth at Melbourne. Her total voyage has exceeded 12,000 miles. Mr. R.G. Casey, Minister for External Affairs, welcomes the ship and chats with Captain Peterson and Law about the adventurous voyage. Meanwhile, in the cold twilight and fierce gales of winter, the men at the ANARE stations are pushing on with their scientific research and the daily tasks inseparable from life in Antarctica. It is to men like these, young, energetic and adventurous, that the world looks for information concerning the regions that lie far to the south under a mantle of cold, blue ice.